Alright guys, today we've got some early MX versus ATV Legends gameplay to show you. Let's go! Big thank you to THQ Nordic and Rainbow Studios for allowing us to show you the game early here. Now, I was limited to just the Rawlings farm for this video, so we have the motocross track here, the supercross track, which is crazy difficult, some first person, some trails, and just some general exploring of the compound here. So I have a lot I want to say in a very short period of time. I'm gonna kind of keep it to like 2 or 3 main things for this video. So we will talk about the physics, but the first thing I want to talk about, we saw the gameplay from the Atlanta Supercross track, and the way the rider was, it felt really stiff, and his arms were just way too close together, and he just felt like he was too far forward and too straight up and down. So they did heavily improve that. You can see his arms are, you know, more aggressive, a more 90-degree angle. When he stands up, he is in more of an aggressive position. It seems more believable. So the rider position is significantly better than it was in that first gameplay we saw at that Supercross track. And that was something I was really concerned about, but they definitely feel like they sorted it out. So now about the physics, and I will talk about the tracks and stuff a bit, but we'll talk about it as we discuss the way the game plays, the core gameplay, the physics of the bike, and how the bike reacts to the tracks and in the air. So the physics, it's kind of weird. It made me think of All Out when I first saw it, before I played it. But the game actually feels quite a bit different. The game, I mean, it's still kind of arcade, so you have moments where you're hitting really big jumps and going really fast and all that stuff. But the way you can tune on the bike and it's set up, the gameplay feels like it's slowed down a bit. So when you whip, we'll talk about the whips here. You will see some whips. It was tough for me because the way you whip in the game, the whipping is so much slowed down from the way it was in All Out. In All Out, you could throw the fastest whips. You could literally throw the biggest whips off the smallest jumps because just the rotation of the whip was so fast. In this game, that 100% is not the case. The whips in this game feel more natural. The bike feels way heavier, and the rotation of the whip and just being able to move the bike is so much slower. It's way slower. So the whipping out feels pretty good, and bringing it back feels pretty good too, but I did have some issues with, I felt like the rotation of the, you know, when you bring the whip back, I feel like I wish that could be just a tiny bit faster. You know, I'm not asking for All Out and having whips that fast. That was way too fast. I feel like they're way better in this game. They're completely player controlled, free physics, you know, no worries there. But I wish the rotation, I don't know how you would do that without speeding up the entire whip, but I wish you could bring it back a tiny bit faster. Now, the way you tune on your bike, that affects how much you can whip and the freedom you have, you know, if you can whip easier or faster or whatever. And the tuning is completely different. I don't feel like we have time to talk about it in this video, but we will get to that eventually, which it is different. But the whips, they're really good, and you can whip different. You can scrub, you can whip, you even have quick whips. So you have a tutorial you do at the beginning, and I would highly recommend you do it because it does teach you some stuff you might not be aware of. You have a preload on the right stick where it's more like reflex. You lean back and then let go of the stick, or you can fling it forward, you know, flick the stick forward before you leave the jump to get forward momentum. And then you have the seat bounce on the left stick, which is the stick you're going to use for most of the control of the bike, you know, for cornering and whatnot. The right stick is like kind of a fine tuning, I guess, is the way it is. And you flick the left stick down and then up right before you leave the jump to get a seat bounce. So that's going to be more vertical momentum. And you can do both, the left and right stick, to go even farther and even higher. There's just so much involved with the preload this time. It sounds kind of complicated, but it really isn't. The left stick also is responsible for sitting the rider down and standing him up. The whoops were also really tough in this game, which is great because usually whoops are just kind of an afterthought. You saw us do a quick whip there before that single that we tried to scrub over before we hit that table. I don't know how to explain it. It's a very small thing, but it does help. And it is something I think is new. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure that wasn't in All Out, so kind of a new feature. But yeah, it sounds complicated, but it really isn't. Once you play it, it just kind of all comes together and you just start doing it. But yeah, the controls are bound to both sticks and how you would preload and seat bounce and whatnot. So there's a lot. You can even bunny hop a bit using the left stick for forward momentum, such as jumping off of stepping off of a step on step off, which is really cool. And you can hit some big stuff. It isn't like, remember, it isn't a sim game. It's supposed to be an arcade game where anybody can play it. You also can, if you are a fan of just the single analog stick controls, you can have that option. I was using the dual stick controls, but like I said, most of the control is on the left stick. The right stick is just kind of a fine tuning. But I was trying to, there's a triple at this Supercross track. We were trying to whip and scrub off of more to show you, but it definitely, it's an easy game, but I don't know, it feels so different. I don't really know how to explain it. It kind of, the way the rider is a bit stiffer, but the model, the position of him is so much better. It kind of reminds me a bit of Untamed, maybe, just a bit. The bike weight, it isn't as heavy, Alive felt very, very heavy. It isn't that heavy, but it's way heavier than it was in All Out, and I feel like that is a huge improvement. The ground physics feel more stable. You bounce, you hit some huge braking bumps and rough spots on the track. Sure, you're going to get some bounce, but it isn't, the bike feels more connected to the ground for the most part. There were spots where it might bounce more than other places, or we might even get a weird bounce, but for the most part, the bike feels much more grounded, which is a huge improvement in my opinion. Now, the other thing we noticed in the trailer, and you'll notice here in the gameplay to some degree, is the bike, the traction. In All Out, you had a slider tuner, and you could have insane grip, hit corners at 100 miles an hour, and never slow down, right? And you could still turn, on a dime. In this game, that isn't the way you can do it. So I said we have a different tuning. We will talk about that, but you can tune basically to have more grip or more slip. And if you have more slip, you can turn sharper. If you have more grip, you don't slide as much, but you can't turn as sharp. So maybe set that up for like a big, wide open motocross track. But even if I set the bike up to have the most grip you could have, it was way better, but it still felt like it had a decent amount of slip in it, slide. So I wish, I'm fine with the slipperiness and being able to square a corner off and turn sharper and then have more grip, but you can't turn as sharp. But I do wish that if you actually have it set up for more grip, it's not as slippery. Even with the grip set to the highest it can be, it still is a bit slippery. Oh yeah, remind me that we'll come back to that. I wanted to show this because in All Out, it was a really big deal. People made a big deal about it. The water. Here they have water physics. You can hydroplane. You have sound. You have the splashy stuff. They got it. I wanted to make sure to show it to you. It's a small thing, but I wanted to show it to you because it was heavily criticized in All Out. and they got it right this time. So, I mean, it's a pretty basic thing, but, you know, they were kind of missing it in All Out at release, and they got it here. So, I wanted to show it to you. We have some first person here exploring the compound, showing some trails, and riding through the cornfield. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I wish the slipperiness wasn't as slippery if you had it set to more grip. Not being able to turn it sharp, fine, great. You know, it's like a give and take kind of thing. You get more grip, but you can't turn it sharp. But it does still feel a bit too slippery even if you tune for more grip. Small complaint, I don't think it's that big a deal. It's slippery when you start braking, so I felt like I had to brake earlier to avoid that. But we're kind of running out of time. There's so much I want to say. Hopefully we can show you more. I'm hoping we can. I'm pretty happy with the game where it is right now. I haven't played very much. I'll have to play a lot more before we can, you know, really comment about stuff. But this is just kind of a very early hands-on first impression. But you guys and girls are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the support on the channel lately. It really does mean a lot. And until the next video, take it easy.